Qué buena música. Bueno, les estamos presentando. Voy a bajar la música. Vamos a bajar la música un poquito. Quiero presentarles este video para que disfruten una tarde completa, más de 5 horas, todos los lanzamientos de la compañía SpaceX del año pasado. Están absolutamente todos, incluyendo los de 150 metros y el de la prueba del SN8 que terminó, como todos sabemos, en una destrucción total. Muchos están en inglés, algunos son las transmisiones que hicimos nosotros, pero bueno, espero que lo disfruten enormemente. Un abrazo. Chau, chau.
3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition, liftoff. Here's Starlink to the Falcon, Space Force inaugural launch. Vehicle is pitching downrange.
We are T plus 45 seconds into liftoff, and we have just had liftoff of our Falcon 9 vehicle carrying our Starlink payload. In just about 15 seconds from now, we will be passing through max Q. This is the largest aerodynamic pressure that the vehicle will see throughout ascent. And we've got an awesome view of liftoff right now.
Vehicle is passing through maximum dynamic pressure.
And we just heard that call out for passing through max Q. Now coming up in about a minute will be a rapid succession of events, main engine cutoff, or what we call MECO, followed immediately by stage separation and SES1, which is second engine start. Now MECO is where we shut down that main engine on the first stage booster to allow the vehicle to slow down just enough to separate from second stage. If you're just now joining us, we have an awesome onboard view of our vehicle, Falcon 9. And in about 30 seconds will be those 3 events: MECO, main engine cutoff, stage separation, and SES1. And there is MECO, as you saw those engines shut down.
Stage separation confirmed.
And there is stage separation and second engine start. You can see that second engine on your right screen glowing bright red. Now in about 20 seconds we will have fairing deploy. And we should be able to see this on our screen as well. And on that left screen there, you can see the grid fins. It's a bit dark on the East Coast right now, so hard to see, but we did see those grid fins deploy.
Fairing separation confirmed.
And there is fairing deploy. So as Lauren mentioned earlier, we will be attempting to catch one of the fairing halves on our recovery vessel, Miss Tree, but we will not be able to show this live, so check in with our social media for updates.
Acquisition of signal, Bermuda.
Stage 1, entry burn startup.
right.
Stage 1, entry burn, shutdown.
And we just had a good shutdown of that entry burn. All right. You can see that light on the left. Stage 1
Stage 2
making
is
its
under
way.
terminal guidance.
Stage 1, landing leg
All
deploy.
And yes, we have another landing. This is the 4th landing of this vehicle and the 48th Falcon 9 first stage landing to date. This is awesome. We got video the whole time. That was cool. All right, stage 2 is still doing work.
FTS is saved.
Seco should be coming up any moment.
Welcome back to the webcast for Starlink. So far we've had a on-time liftoff of our Falcon 9 vehicle. Our first stage made its way back and landed for its 4th time.
There we go. That's all 60 of those Starlink satellites on their merry way. It's a beautiful sight. Just to give you guys an update on the...
Within the context of this test, the views that you will see will allow us to validate the effectiveness of our launch escape system. Now, as a reminder, the ground is not commanding this abort. It's up to the onboard computers to determine when to trigger the launch escape and do all the functions afterward. Once Dragon does trigger the launch escape, the first event will be commanding Falcon 9 to shut down its 9 Merlin engines. Now, as Marie and I mentioned earlier, Dragon will then separate from the Falcon using its 8 Super Draco engines, firing for about 8 seconds. That carries Dragon capsule with the trunk up and away from Falcon. Now, once they finish firing the Super Dracos, we coast, we jettison the trunk at apogee, we reorient the capsule to come back for entry into the Earth's atmosphere. We deploy about 2 minutes after apogee the drogue chutes, and about a minute after that, the 4 main parachutes will be released. Dragon will then splash down softly in the Atlantic Ocean, about 35 kilometers offshore. Now, when Dragon separates, we no longer have that smooth aerodynamic shape on top of the rocket. So the supersonic Falcon is going to be exposed to strong aerodynamic forces in the upper atmosphere. So we expect those aerodynamic forces will cause Falcon to start to tumble. Our simulations show that the Falcon will likely break apart due to the tumbling, instead of having the destruct system triggered and destroying the rocket. So now again, this entire test will take less than 10 minutes from the time Falcon 9 lifts off until Dragon splashes down.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition, liftoff. Simplify, aim high. Go Falcon, go Dragon.
Vehicle is pitching downrange.
T plus 30 seconds. Falcon 9 with the Crew Dragon capsule is heading east from pad 39A. Everything looking good right now. As we get ready for max dynamic pressure, we are now throttling down the first stage engines on the Falcon
power
9.
and telemetry nominal.
Everything continues to look good. We're approaching the period of maximum dynamic pressure.
Vehicle is supersonic and passing through maximum dynamic pressure.
You've heard we're supersonic, we're through max Q. We're getting ready now to throttle the engines back up on the first stage.
Stage 1, throttle up.
There's the call out. Okay, the major activity coming up in just over 10 seconds. Shutdown and Dragon escape from the Falcon 9.
Miko. Dragon launch escape initiated.
Dragon's away.
And you can hear some really loud cheering in the room. Okay, you just saw a bright flash there. It looks like that may be Falcon 9 breaking up. We've got some loud cheers here in Hawthorne. The folks that just watched live the Dragon separate The next milestone we have coming up at 2 minutes, 25 seconds, we're expecting to see the trunk jettison. So that claw that connects the trunk to the capsule is going to separate, allowing Dragon to separate from the trunk. That's coming up in 15 seconds.
And we do have the report, loss of telemetry from Falcon 9, first stage.
And there you just saw the trunk jettison. Again, some really loud cheers here in Hawthorne, California. This test is looking great so far. And there they are. Drogue chutes are out. Again, some major cheering going on here as every stage of this test unfolds. Now we're going to be getting ready for the main chutes to deploy.
Now, main chutes will be coming up fairly quickly. There are 4 main parachutes. These are the newest Mark III parachutes. They're each 116 feet in diameter. We deploy them about 2 kilometers above sea level, 6,500 feet above the Atlantic Ocean. We're getting good views from the Dragon and the airplane, showing the 2 drogue chutes. Now we're just waiting for the main parachutes to be deployed very shortly. And we have the view from a different camera on Dragon showing the 4 main parachutes. Now they are deployed in a reefed condition. That means we're keeping them fairly shut to avoid shocks, and now we're slowly opening up the 4 parachutes. Great views coming off of the Dragon camera on the left, and we can also see the 4 parachutes from the airplane on the right.
That is a really cool view.
Nice view of the orange and white parachutes as they're opening up into the 2nd position. And then going to fully open. From fully open, we'll be descending about 20 to 25 feet per second down to the Atlantic. So from that 6,500 foot altitude, it's going to take us a few minutes to splash down. Also right now that the mains are out, a sequence is performed on the Dragon, which will reorient the crew seats into a splashdown position, give them a little better angle to take the slow bounce as we hit the ocean. Now, Maria, I talked about the parachutes came out initially at a reef condition. That's fairly standard. They come out not fully open. That way they're minimizing the shock on the parachutes. We're also minimizing the shock on the capsule. Again, we want to give a smooth ride to the crew as they are coming back through the Earth's atmosphere.
Right.
Now, I think we may have heard a call out of 100 meters to go.
Yeah, I just heard that too.
Yep.
Now those 4 parachutes are actually going to be released from the capsule after splashdown, and they'll be recovered too.
And we are down.
Down a little bit early, in fact. And there you can see the recovery boat beginning to approach instantly. I'm going to try to talk a little bit louder so you can...
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition, liftoff.
Vehicles pitching downrange.
Stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
It is T plus 45 seconds, and we've just had a nominal liftoff of our Falcon 9 vehicle carrying our Starlink payload on its way to its targeted orbit. In just about 20 seconds coming up here, we will be passing through max Q.
Falcon 9 is supersonic.
That is the maximum aerodynamic pressure that the vehicle will see, which is the largest structural load that the vehicle sees throughout ascent.
Vehicle is experiencing maximum aerodynamic pressure.
And we've just heard that call out from Max Q. Coming up next in about a minute will be 3 events back to back, starting off with MECO, or main engine cutoff, followed immediately by stage separation, and this is where the first stage separates from the second stage, and then followed by SES1, which is second engine startup.
MVAC engine chill.
And we should be able to see all 3 of those events live on your screen. But right now we've got an awesome view looking aft on the vehicle with the Earth in the background. Now if you're just now joining us, we're about 30 seconds away from MECO, main engine cutoff, stage separation, and SES1, or second engine start 1. There's that main engine cutoff.
Main engine cutoff.
Stage separation confirmed.
You can see the stage separation, first stage separating from second stage on your left screen, and on the right, second engine startup. That's that MVAC engine on our second stage. And there's that bright red glow on the engine. So now coming up in about 20 seconds is fairing deploy, and as Lauren mentioned earlier, we will be attempting to catch both payload fairing halves on our recovery vessels, Mystery and Mischief. It will be unlikely that we will see these live on the webcast, so we'll bring you updates as they become available, but you can also check into our social media for updates as well.
Fairing separation confirmed.
And there's that call out for fairing separation. There's fairing deploy. You can see that on your right screen. Those fairing halves are now making, you can see that on your screen actually, the fairing halves are making their way back to Earth, and hopefully we can catch those on our recovery vessels.
AOS Bermuda.
Okay, so we have on both sides of your screen here, we got stage 1 on the left and stage 2 on the right. So a lot of really cool stuff coming up all at once or in rapid succession here in the next few minutes. On the left side, what we're gonna see on the stage 1 side of things is at about T plus 6 minutes and 24 seconds, more or less, you're gonna hear the call out and hopefully visually see the stage 1 entry burn. That's where we reignite 3 of those Merlin 1D engines, and that allows the first stage to slow down as it re-enters the upper part of the Earth's
Stage 2 is
atmosphere.
on a nominal trajectory.
All right, as you just heard, stage 2 is on a nominal trajectory. That's really cool. Meanwhile, stage 1 is coasting down, getting ready for that entry burn. That burn's gonna last just under 20 seconds. After that entry burn, stage 1 will continue to coast down towards the drone ship, and at about T plus 8 minutes or so, you're gonna hear the call out for the landing burn. That is where we reignite a single Merlin 1D engine, that center engine E9, and that slows the vehicle down to 0 velocity, and hopefully you'll see a cool image of it standing right up on the drone ship. Meanwhile, stage 2 continues to perform nominally, wearing that MVAC is at full power. Now, right after the stage 1 landing, about 20 seconds later, you're going to hear the call out for SECO 1, that's second engine cutoff 1. That is where we cease to burn the second stage engine and takes us into our first coast phase. That stage 2 engine is burning with more than 200,000 pounds of thrust as it takes that stack of 60 Starlink satellites to its first parking orbit.
Stage 1 entry startup.
All right, you see that entry burn as it started. Right, that landing burn is currently going. Unfortunately, we don't have the video from the vehicle, but we do have the drone
Stage 1
video.
landing light deploy.
Stage 2 is in terminal guidance.
All right, and yes. Awesome. That's the third landing of this booster. Second time landing on, of course, I Still Love You.
Falcon 9 has landed. Operators
out into their orbital planes and raise their altitude to their operational orbit of 550 kilometers. Our insertion orbit, if you remember today, is about 290 kilometers above the Earth. Look at that beautiful view. Okay, well, the one of space was awesome. The animation's cool too, but hopefully we'll get back to those live views from space.
Starlink tension rod separation confirmed.
Okay, we just heard the call out that separation has been confirmed. Let's see if we can get another view. That would be really cool. Here it should be coming up. There we go. Oh, that's gorgeous. That's those 60 Starlink satellites successfully separating from stage 2, and that beautiful planet there is the planet that those satellites are going to provide internet service to, which is super, super exciting. And with that, that brings our webcast to a close. We had a successful mission. We had a great stage 1 ascent, completing the hat trick, launching from 3 separate launch sites. We had the third...
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition, liftoff.
Falcon 9 is pitching downrange.
Stage 1 propulsion nominal.
Power and telemetry nominal.
It is T plus 47 seconds, and we have just had liftoff of our Falcon 9 vehicle, taking our Starlink payload to its targeted orbit. In about 15 seconds or so, we will be passing through max Q. Max Q is the maximum aerodynamic pressure that the vehicle will see throughout its
Falcon 9
ascent.
supersonic.
You should hear that call out in about 5 seconds or so.
Falcon 9 is experiencing maximum aerodynamic pressure.
And there's that call out for max Q. Coming up next in about a minute will be 3 events happening in rapid succession. The first of which will be MECO, or main engine cutoff, followed immediately by stage separation, and this is where the first stage separates from the second stage, and then followed by SES-1, or second engine start 1.
MVAC engine chill.
And you can see on your screen, this is a nice live view looking aft on the vehicle, so you can see those Merlin engines burning real bright right now with Earth in the background. And we're just about 30 seconds away. If you're just now joining us, the next 3 events coming up will be MECO, or main engine cutoff, stage separation, and SES-1, second engine start 1. And as we mentioned, today we will only be having 1 burn of the second stage.
MECO.
Stage separation confirmed.
And there we've just had MECO, main engine cutoff, and stage separation.
And back ignition.
And second engine start 1 on your right screen. That engine is starting up and should be turning bright red shortly here. There it is. Now coming up in about 5 seconds, we will have fairing deploy. Should also be able to see this on your screen.
Fairing separation confirmed.
And there is fairing deploy. Now both fairing halves are making their way back to Earth. Let's hope that we can catch both of them today on Mystery and Mischief.
MVAC shutdown.
Okay, we were
Stage 2
expecting
FTS is saved.
We were expecting the call out for landing, and we obviously didn't see it there on the drone ship. So let's look back at stage 2.
Newfoundland, AOS.
And we clearly did not make the landing this time. However, stage 2, we have confirmed SECO, which is...
And there it goes. Another round of satellites out in space. So with that, that brings our webcast to a close. We had an on-time liftoff this morning, a good stage separation. First stage made its way back to Earth. Unfortunately, we did not land the first stage on our drone ship, but it did make a soft landing on the water right now.
LD go.
3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff. Carpe diem, Dragon 1.
Vehicle is pushing downrange. Now 1 deep pause. Power and telemetry nominal.
At T plus 45 seconds, Falcon 9 has cleared the towers, and the final Dragon 1 flight is underway. Everything looking nominal
Falcon
for stage
9 is
1.
supersonic.
We heard the call out that the vehicle is supersonic.
Vehicle is experiencing maximum dynamic pressure.
There we heard the call out for max Q. Coming up next, there are 5 events that will be happening in rapid succession. Main engine cutoff, or as you'll see in the event tracker on the bottom of your screen, MECO. Then stage separation, second engine start, or SES1, followed by a boost back burn of the first stage and Dragon nose cone deploy. Main engine cutoff for MECO is where all 9 M1D engines on first stage will shut down. This is immediately followed by stage separation, where the first and second stages will separate. A few seconds later, MVAC, or the M Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage, will ignite and begin to boost Dragon to low Earth orbit.
MVAC chill started.
So again, MECO, stage sep, SES1, all happening in quick succession. Let's tune in.
Stage separation confirmed.
And there on the right-hand side of your screen, and by the cheers in the crowd behind me, we have visual confirmation of second engine start as that warm glow begins to build around the NVAC nozzle. On the left-hand side of your screen, we have an amazing visual of the first stage as it is performing its boost back burn. Now, this is the first of 3 maneuvers that the first stage will be performing. As Jesse mentioned earlier, we will be landing back at landing zone 1 on the coast of Florida at Cape Canaveral. So the first stage has to completely reorient itself and head back west. It was flying east, now it's going to flip around, head back west towards the Cape during this boost back burn, which should be ending in 5 seconds. MVAC is looking good. Everything nominal with our temperature and power
Stage
readings
one,
there.
boost back shut down.
And we can see on the left-hand side of our screen that the boost back burn has completed. Second stage looking good as Dragon is on its way to the International Space Station.
Vehicle is on a nominal trajectory.
Acquisition of signal at Bermuda.
In order to make its way back to landing zone 1, the first stage executes a series of 3 burns. The first of which you just saw is the boost back burn, and as Kate mentioned, this is meant to slow the rocket down and orient it for re-entry. It also helps Falcon 9 laterally return to the landing zone. Then shortly after this first burn is initiated, the grid fins, which are located near the top of the first stage, are deployed to help guide the rocket during descent. We're not showing a live view of the first stage right now because it's pretty dark, so you can't see it. But what you're seeing on your screen is the second stage continuing on its way to its targeted orbit. So then following the boost back burn, Falcon 9 executes its re-entry burn to slow itself down before hitting the dense part of the atmosphere. And then the last of the 3 burns is the landing burn, which begins just before touchdown, and that's to slow the vehicle down rapidly right before landing. So far, second stage is still looking good. It's T plus 5 minutes, and the second stage is taking Dragon to its targeted orbit. We've had an on-time liftoff just a few minutes ago, and we're just about a minute away from that second burn on the first stage, that entry burn. Again, if we do land our first stage tonight, it will be our 50th landing. Second stage
Vehicle continues to follow
look
nominal trajectory.
And there's that call out for nominal trajectory. If you're just now joining us, it's T plus 6 minutes, and we're about 30 seconds away from the first stage entry burn, which will then be followed by the landing burn and landing of the first stage on our landing zone 1 in Cape Canaveral. So you can see on your left-hand screen, this is a view from the first stage. You can see Earth with all the lights lighting up the ground. Once that entry burn begins, we should be able to see that light up that screen on the left side.
Stage 1, entry burn, startup.
And there it is. Entry burn has started. This burn will last about 20 seconds long. Again, as I mentioned earlier, there's those grid fins that you can see on your left-hand screen near the top of the first stage. That's guiding the vehicle
entry burn, shut down.
to the landing zone. And there's that shutdown of that entry burn. So we're just about 40 seconds away or so from the landing burn start. The landing burn will last about 30 seconds before the vehicle touches down. Second stage is still looking nominal. And it is a bit dark since it is nighttime over there in Cape Canaveral,
Stage
but
1 entry
we
transonic.
should be able to get a live view of this landing.
Stage 1 landing burn startup.
And there's that landing burn starting.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy.
And the Falcon has landed for the 50th time in SpaceX history. What an amazing live view all the way to touchdown.
Stage 1 nominal landing confirmed.
What an awesome view of our first stage for the 50th time. Congratulations to the entire SpaceX team for another successful...
Actually, hopefully just in a couple of seconds now that I'm looking at the timeline. We should have video here. There we can see a view into the Dragon trunk. That is the unpressurized section. Successfully deploying away from second stage. That unpressurized cargo is stuff that is able to be exposed to the vacuum of space. Everything that cannot endure such an environment, we pack into the pressurized section. So coming up in about 2 minutes, we should have solar array deployment. As Jesse mentioned previously, Dragon is carrying tons of cargo to the International Space Station on this mission. A small portion of the cargo represents supplies for the astronauts, things like food and clothing. But most of the cargo represents science going up to the space station. The International Space Station serves as the world's leading laboratory for cutting-edge research. The first version of our Dragon vehicle, the upgraded version that we're using next, has a different trunk design than the one that we're currently looking at. In the new version, oh, there we have visual confirmation of deployment of the solar arrays. As Dragon stretches its wings for the very last time, I'd like to congratulate the SpaceX and NASA teams that have designed, built, tested, and supported this spacecraft over the last decade. Your hard work has paved the way for the first Crew Dragon flight with NASA astronauts later this year.
Primed and Northwestern's report ready for firing.
Dragon is now on its way to the space station. Very exciting day, as you can hear the crowd behind me. Over the next couple of days, Dragon will perform a series of orbital height adjust maneuvers with its Draco engines until it's within a few kilometers of the International Space Station. Then Dragon will establish a communications link with the space station. And then we will perform a series...
They just opened up at around T-minus 4.5 minutes. And right now, the transporter erector, that vertical truss structure, is starting to slowly retract a few degrees. It may be hard to see, but guaranteed this retraction is enough for Falcon 9 to clear the pad. In terms of propellant, the first and second stages, when you add up that kerosene fuel and liquid oxygen, it's 1 million pounds of propellant. That vehicle will finish prop loading at T-minus 2 minutes with the first stage
4,
locks.
3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition.
It's T plus 40 seconds, and we've just had liftoff of our Falcon 9 vehicle, taking our Starlink payload to its targeted deployment orbit. We are now throttling down and throttling back up in preparation for max Q, which is coming up here in about 10 seconds or so. Max Q is the maximum aerodynamic pressure that the vehicle sees throughout ascent, so it's the largest structural load that the vehicle will see. Should hear that call out in about 5 seconds.
Maximum aerodynamic pressure.
And there's that call out for max Q, confirmation that we've just passed through max Q. Coming up in about a minute, we will have 3 events in rapid succession. The first of which being main engine cutoff, or what we call MECO. This is where all 9 of our M1D engines shut off and slow the vehicle down for the following event, which is stage separation. And that's when the first stage separates from the second stage. And then finally, the lighting of our second stage MVAC engine, which we call SES1, or second engine start 1. Now, if you've been following our Starlink missions, you know that we've reduced the number of burns on the second stage for these missions from 2 burns down to just 1 single burn. This allows the second stage to provide 70% of the velocity needed for this mission, which allows the first stage to use less fuel and thus making first stage recovery much easier. So today we will again only be doing 1 burn of that second stage engine. Again, coming up in about 10 seconds are those 3 events, MECO, stage separation, and SES1.
MECO 1.
Stage separation confirmed.
And back ignition.
And there we've just had MECO and stage separation. That stage separation confirms the successful 5th use of our first stage booster. And you can see on your right screen that second stage MVAC engine lighting up and taking that second stage to its targeted orbit. And we're just a few seconds away from fairing deploy. Again, this fairing was used once before on our very first Starlink mission. And there is the visual confirmation of fairing deploy. So this means that we've successfully reused this fairing. So now let's see if Miss Tree and Miss Chief can catch those fairing halves today. We likely won't have that live view since fairing touchdown will happen past the conclusion of this morning's webcast, but stay tuned to our social media for updates later this morning.
Stage 2 is on a nominal trajectory.
Acquisition of signal, Bermuda.
For those of you just joining us, good morning and welcome. We just had a successful liftoff of our Falcon 9 about 4 minutes ago. There's a lot going on right now. On the right-hand side of your screen, our second stage. Its Merlin vacuum engine is currently burning and will continue to do so for a few minutes. It's carrying 60 Starlink satellites for eventual payload deploy. But we're going to focus the next few minutes on the left-hand side of the screen with our first stage. Currently right now, after stage separation, that first stage is boosting, still gliding up without any engine power. It's hitting apogee just about now, and for the next few seconds, it's going to start to free fall down to the Earth's surface for an attempted first stage recovery on our drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean. As our first stage reorients itself, we're going to prepare for the first of 2 engine burns on that first stage to aid our recovery, the first of which is coming up in about 90 seconds. It's known as our entry burn. We fire 3 of the 9 Merlin engines in the opposite direction the way we're heading. We do this in order to slow down the vehicle about 25% before we hit the dense part of the atmosphere. Not performing this burn would put unnecessary strain on our first stage. We're just at about T plus 6 minutes. We're a little more than 45 seconds away from that engine burn. It only lasts about 10 seconds. And although our first stage only takes a few minutes to get from its apogee down to the Earth's surface, our two fairing halves takes much longer. Please stay posted with our social media for updates on those recoveries. We're about 15 seconds away from that entry burn. We're going to wait for that visual confirmation the burn started and call out that that engine burn was successful.
Stage one entry burn startup.
Stage 2 continues to follow a nominal trajectory.
Stage 1 entry burn shut down.
Our entry burn has just completed. The next step is our landing burn. It's about 90 seconds from now. In terms of velocity reduction, with the remaining velocity, the denser part of the atmosphere actually slows our Falcon 9 by 80%, and the landing burn achieves just that last bit.
And there is that live view. So you can see on your screen the satellites are slowly separating away from the second stage, and over the next few weeks they will distance themselves from each other and eventually use their onboard ion thrusters to make their way to their final orbit.
And with that successful deployment, that brings our webcast to a close for today. To recap our mission, we had a successful liftoff of Falcon 9 from Kennedy Space Center at 8:16 a.m. Eastern Time. We had a successful separation of that first stage from the second stage. Unfortunately, we did not recover that first stage for another launch, but as you can see, 60 healthy and operational Starlink satellites are on their way to their intended orbits. It's definitely been an exciting launch today. We want to thank the 45th Space Wing for range safety and the FAA for licensing today's launch. And we'd also like to thank you, all of our viewers, for tuning in. Please follow our website and social media platforms for updates on our next mission.
Three, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff.
Falcon 9 is pitching downrange.
Stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
Power and telemetry nominal.
As you can see, Falcon 9 has had a successful liftoff from pad 39A. Moments ago, we throttled the engines down and we'll throttle back up just in a second for preparation for Max Q. Max Q stands for maximum aerodynamic pressure, which are the highest stresses that the vehicle will see during ascent.
Maximum aerodynamic pressure.
Now coming up in about a minute, we will have 3 events happening back to back. First is main engine cutoff, or MECO. This is where all 9 M1D engines will shut off to slow the vehicle down in preparation for the second event, which is stage separation. This is where the second stage will separate from the first stage, with stage 1 making its way back down to Earth for landing, and stage 2 kicking off that third event that I mentioned, which is SES1, or second engine start 1. This is where the MVAC engine will light up and propel the second stage along with the Starlink satellites to orbit. Expecting MECO to occur in about 30 seconds.
MECO.
Stage separation confirmed.
Successful MECO. Successful stage sep. And it appears we have reignited or ignited that second stage engine for SES1. Now we're just a few seconds from fairing deploy. Again, this fairing has flown before on a previous mission. Grid fins are opening up.
Fairing separation confirmed.
And we have fairing separation. We have successfully reused this fairing. Now those halves are making their way back down to the sea, where hopefully we can scoop them up. So on the left side of your screen, you have stage 1, which is making its way down to the drone ship. And on the right, you have stage 2, that MVAC engine burning with 250,000 pounds of thrust. The grid fins appear to be fully deployed at this point. Now, while stage 2 continues on with the primary mission, stage 1's got its own plans. It's going to execute 2 burns prior to landing. The first is the entry burn. That's where we will reignite 3 of the M1D engines, which will help slow the stage down as it re-enters the upper part of the Earth's atmosphere. Shortly thereafter, we'll have a second burn, which we call the landing burn. This is a single engine burn that brings the vehicle's velocity down rapidly in order to land safely on the drone ship. At the same time, during that burn, you'll see the landing legs that are currently folded up along the side of the rocket are going to deploy. MVAC is looking good right now. It looks a little overexposed on that image there, but we can still see the plume coming out, and we're still hearing good data. So while we're 2 minutes away from entry burn, just a note on these Starlink satellites, these 60 will be joining the constellation that's already on orbit. As we mentioned, we've launched more than 360 satellites. And again, these are to provide high-speed, low-latency internet to people down on that globe that you see on the right side of your screen. The MVAC engine on stage 2 is at full power and on a nominal trajectory. Now, as stage 1 is making its way down, again, there are no engines burning while it's doing this. It's basically coasting, using the grid fins to steer, and you can see those white puffs occasionally. That's cold nitrogen gas that is being used for attitude control, part of our ACS system, or attitude control system. Okay, that entry burn should be coming up here in about 15 seconds. Meanwhile, stage 2 continues on as planned.
Stage 1, entry burn, startup.
Stage 1 FTS is safe.
This burn goes for about 20 seconds. Four engines burning at once right now.
Stage 2 continues to follow a nominal trajectory.
Stage 1, entry burn, shutdown.
All right, successful shutdown of that entry burn. Meanwhile, stage 2 is looking great. All right, full screen shine here. There we go. Now this burn on stage 2 is going to continue up until you hear the call out of SECO 1, or second engine cutoff 1. You're going to hear that pretty quickly after landing.
Stage 1, entry transonic.
All right, MVAC D is beginning to throttle down, getting ready for that second engine cutoff.
Stage 1, landing burn, startup.
Entering terminal guidance.
All right, that landing burn has started. Let's see if we can see the plume in the view from the drone ship.
Stage 1, landing leg deploy.
Stage 2 FTS is safe.
There it is. Let's see. We have cheers. We have a rocket. Awesome. This is the 4th landing for this booster. And as you can hear, everybody here is super stoked to see it there. It's great. It's a gorgeous day. Gorgeous rocket. All right. Solar array, and over the next, oh, there they go. All right, that's those 60 Starlink satellites. Look at that cool glow around them. Wow. Now, shortly after, as I was saying, after just coming up in the next, few hours or so, we're going to see the solar arrays deploy. And over the next days and weeks, the satellites will begin to distance themselves away from one another and use their onboard ion thrusters to make their way to their operational orbit of 550 kilometers. Sorry, that image just is always so beautiful and catches me each time.
Diez, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 2, 1. Motores encendidos. Lanzamiento. Lift off.
Go NASA, go SpaceX. Godspeed, Bob and Doug.
America has launched. So rises a new era of American spaceflight, and with it the ambitions of new generation continuing the dream. 20 seconds into flight stage 1 propulsion in the second. At this point, Bob
and ready to light. That'll come at about 2:44 into flight. Right now, everything can.
Se corta el motor principal.
Coming up in about 20 seconds.
Tiene la separación y la ignición de la segunda etapa. Todo sucede cuando el cursor ahora pase por ese puntito negro que está en el medio de la pantalla.
On the first stage. Ready to light. That'll come at about 2:44.
Falcon stage separation confirmed.
Se apagó y ahora vamos a ver la ignición de la segunda etapa. A la derecha está el motor.
MVAC ignition.
Están prendiéndose, se va a poner naranja.
All right, we have stage separation confirmed. The first stage beginning its flight back. The second stage being powered by that single Merlin 1D vacuum engine has ignited and is now carrying. While they continue uphill, looks like we are getting a view of the first stage as well.
Yep, on your right screen, you can see that first.
Ingresando arriba a la derecha, está por prender el motor para frenar su trayectoria de ingreso.
And there is that entry burn beginning.
Ahí está comenzando.
This burn lasts about 36 seconds long.
Depende, creo que solo 2 o 3 motores, nada más de los 9 que tiene.
See here? And there you can see on your screen, Falcon 9 has landed.
Waiting for confirmation now of that.
Bueno, ahí está la separación. Confirmado.
There is a great view right in front of you.
Ahí vemos que se aleja una de otra en la etapa 2. Esa etapa lamentablemente no se puede recuperar.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
And there's that call out that Falcon 9 is in startup.
Go for launch.
And at T-minus 45 seconds, there was that call out for go for launch. Again, that was the Falcon 9 rocket making that decision autonomously. Now we are T-minus 30 seconds from liftoff of our Starlink payload tonight. So let's listen in and watch liftoff.
T-minus 15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff!
Falcon 9 pushing down range.
We are T plus 40 seconds into flight, and Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from pad 40 at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, carrying our Starlink payload to its targeted drop-off orbit. Moments ago, we did throttle down our engines in preparation for max Q, and that is the maximum aerodynamic pressure, which is the largest structural load that the vehicle will see. That's coming up here in a few seconds.
Max Q.
And there's that call out that we have just passed through max Q. In about a minute, we will have 3 events happening back to back. The first of which will be main engine cutoff, or MECO. This is where all 9 M1D engines shut off to slow the vehicle down in preparation for the second event, which is stage separation. Stage separation is where the first stage separates from the second stage, with the first stage starting to make its way back to Earth for landing, and stage 2 continuing on its journey, with the third event called SES1, or second engine start 1. And that's where the MVAC engine lights up on the second stage and propels the second stage along with the Starlink satellites to its drop-off orbit. We are at T plus 2 minutes and 5 seconds, so we're just about 25 seconds away from those 3 events. Again, that is MECO, stage separation, and SES 1, or second engine start 1.
MECO.
Stage separation confirmed.
And there you can see on your screen, on the left screen, we had main engine cutoff and stage separation. On your right screen is the second stage MVAC engine lighting up, glowing bright red there. And it is a bit dark on the East Coast, but you can see on your left screen that first stage, those grid fins are deploying. And on your right screen, we have fairing deploy coming up here.
Separation confirmed.
And there is that confirmation of fairing deploy. Now let's see if those fairing halves can be recovered by our recovery ships, Mystery and Mischief today. Again, we won't have that live. That will happen around T plus 40 minutes, so check in with our social media accounts for updates on those fairing halves. And stage 2 still looking nominal. Again, that is what you see on your right screen. Stage 1 is making its way back.
Acquisition of signal Bermuda.
And as the first stage makes its way back to Earth, it will perform 2 burns, the first of which will be the entry burn, and that is where 3 of the 9 M1D engines reignite, and this helps slow the vehicle down as it re-enters back into the upper part of the Earth's atmosphere. And finally will be the second and final burn is the landing burn. And this is a single engine burn. That's the center E9 engine that reignites and brings the vehicle all the way down very...
Stage 1 FTS has saved.
Stage 1 entry burn has started.
And there you hear that call out, as well as a visual confirmation that those engines have reignited.
The vehicle continues to follow a nominal trajectory.
And stage 1 entry burn shut down.
And confirmation that the stage 1 entry burn is complete, as well as stage 2 still looking nominal. If you heard that call out. Coming up next is the landing burn around T plus 8.5 minutes, around 8 minutes and 24 seconds. Looks like we lost that live view of the first stage coming down, but that is expected. So hopefully we can get that live view back. Right now,
stage 1 is transonic.
Right now, what you're seeing on your left screen is the drone ship Just Read the Instructions. Followed very closely after the landing burn and landing of the first stage will be SECO 1, that is second engine cutoff, around T plus 8 minutes and 58 seconds.
Stage 1 landing burn has started.
Terminal guidance.
Landing legs have deployed.
Stage 2 FTS has saved.
And wow, as you saw coming
and
down,
JRTI,
that first stage Falcon 9.
Operators moving to procedure 11.100 on Recovery 1 and ECF 9.
Amazing, that first stage booster has landed for the first time, for the 5th time for a Falcon 9 booster. That is amazing. We're waiting for second stage engine cutoff. What an amazing view of that first stage coming down, even though it was dark and night. But those engines lighting up the screen, watching first stage come down, was an amazing view. And we heard a call out of good orbit for second stage.
Acquisition of signal, Newfoundland.
And now that second stage is going to, now that second stage is in a good orbit, it's going to coast for a few minutes. And during this time, it will start to spin along its central axis, giving these Starlink satellites the momentum that they need to space themselves out over time after they deploy.
Payload deploy confirmed.
And there is that confirmation. We got a live view as it was deploying from the vehicle. Those Starlink satellites are making their way, separating from second stage right in front of you right now. Shortly, they will deploy their solar array, and over the next few days and weeks, they will distance themselves from each other and use their onboard ion thrusters to make their way to their operational orbit. And also, just to note, tomorrow is June 4th. That was actually the anniversary of our first Falcon flight. 10-year anniversary of our first flight, so very exciting time. First Falcon 9 flight. So very, very exciting times. And that brings our webcast to a close. Follow our website and social media platforms for updates on our next missions and milestones. And as the work goes on to build a better, more exciting future.
Falcon 9's in startup.
And there's that confirmation that Falcon 9 is in startup. Next up at T-minus 45 seconds, we should hear the call out for a go for launch.
LD is go for launch.
And there's that call out for go for launch. So as we're approaching T0, it is T-minus 35 seconds. Let's watch and listen into the nets and watch this liftoff of our
30 seconds.
Of our Starlink payload with our planet's SkySats.
T-minus 15 seconds.
Falcon 9 is configured for flight.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff of Falcon 9 and Starlink Ocho.
Plus 40 seconds into flight, and Falcon 9 has just had a successful liftoff.
Telemetry are nominal.
A successful liftoff from pad 40 for its first Starlink rideshare, carrying 3 Planet SkySats and our SpaceX Starlink satellites. Next coming up will be Max Q, and that is the maximum aerodynamic pressure that the vehicle sees, the largest structural load that the vehicle sees throughout ascent.
Max Q.
And there's that call out that we just passed through Max Q. Next up will be 3 events happening back to back, and that will be MECO, our main engine cutoff, stage separation, as well as second engine start, or SES-1. Main engine cutoff, or MECO, is when all 9 of the M1D engines shut off and slow the vehicle down in preparation for the next event, which is stage separation. And stage separation is where the first stage separates from the second stage, with first stage making its way back to Earth and second stage taking our satellites to their targeted orbit. And then finally will be SES-1, which is second engine start, with that MVAC engine lighting up and taking those...
The vehicle is following a nominal trajectory.
And taking those satellites to orbit. Now those 3 events are coming up here in about 15 seconds. Again, that is MECO, stage separation, and SES-1.
Stage separation confirmed.
And there, as you saw live on your screen, MECO, main engine cutoff, and stage separation. First stage being on your left screen. On your right screen is second stage with that MVAC engine glowing bright red there. On your left screen, you can see those grid fins deploying on the first stage. Those grid fins help.
Fairing separation confirmed.
And we just had fairing separation. We had a successful deployment of those fairing halves. Let's see if Miss Tree and Miss Chief can make a catch attempt today.
Vehicle continues to follow a nominal trajectory.
And as I was mentioning, the grid fins have deployed. That helps guide that first stage back to its landing zone.
Acquisition of signal, Bermuda.
Stage 2 is still looking good. We're getting a nice bright view of first stage on your left screen. And coming up next for first stage, as it makes its way back to Earth, it will perform a couple of burns, the first of which will be the entry burn. And that entry burn is where 3 of the 9 Merlin 1D engines light up and slow the stage down as it re-enters back into the upper part of the Earth's atmosphere. The second burn is called the landing burn, and this is when the single engine on the vehicle, the E9 engine, ignites and brings the vehicle speed down rapidly in order to land on the drone ship. And again, we are attempting to land on our drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You, today. We're getting a nice bright view. I believe that is the sun hitting that first stage on your left screen there. So really, really cool view of that. Second stage is still looking good. That is on your right screen. And at T plus 5.5 minutes, we're just about 1 minute and 15 seconds or so away from that entry burn beginning on that first stage.
Vehicle continues to follow a nominal trajectory.
There's that call out that the second stage vehicle is still on a good trajectory. And again, that first stage is making its way back to our drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You. With the entry burn coming up here in about 30 seconds or so. Again, if you're just now joining us, what you can see on your left screen is first stage with those grid fins deployed, guiding the vehicle back to its landing zone.
Stage 1 FTS is saved.
Stage 1 entry burn has started.
And there you can see that the entry burn has begun. It's lighting up that screen pretty bright there. Now, the entry burn will last about 20 seconds long. And that completes the entry burn for first stage. We have a really cool view of Earth in the background of first stage. That is an awesome view. Stage 2 is still looking good. We're just about a minute away from that landing burn.
First stage from the Cape expected.
And we did hear that call out that we did lose that live signal of the first stage as expected. Coming up here in at about T plus 8 minutes and 21 seconds will be the beginning of the landing burn. Landing burn will last about 20 seconds long, and then hopefully we'll get to see first stage touch down on our drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You.
Stage 1 is transonic.
And about 10 seconds after landing of the first stage will be SECO 1 on second stage. So we will have a couple of events happening very close to each other. So we'll listen in and wait for those call outs.
Stage 2 has entered terminal guidance.
Stage 1 landing burn has started.
And that landing burn has begun on the first stage. Again, this will last about 20 seconds long. Let's wait and watch to see if we can land this booster
Stage
for
2
a third
FTS
time.
is saved.
Stage 1 landing legs have deployed.
Wow, and we got a live, awesome view.
And
touchdown.
Stage 1 has landed. Landing operators proceed to 11.100 on recovery 1 and ECF 9.
And there you heard that call out, and you can see on your left screen that Stage 1 has landed on Of Course I Still Love You. We are waiting for Stage 2 for SECO 1, which is second engine cutoff. What an awesome view of that first stage.
Nominal orbital insertion.
All right, starting TX Prime RF1A on.
We did confirm SECO and confirmed good orbit. So now that second stage is going to coast in this orbit for a few minutes. We're going to, and it's worth mentioning that we may not actually see the deployment of these due to their placement on top of the Starlink stack, where we don't have cameras positioned. So we may have to rely on confirmation over the nets. So you can see on your screen, this is the view of the Starlink satellites, and the 3 SkySats are sitting on top of them. Should be hearing a call out for the first SkySat shortly.
SkySat 1 separation confirmed.
And there's that confirmation that that first SkySat has deployed. Now these 3 SkySats. Oh, and it looks like we can actually see there's that first SkySat satellite. Pretty awesome view. We should hear a call out for the second one here shortly. They're deploying in about 30-second increments here.
SkySat 2 separation confirmed.
And there's the confirmation for the second SkySat. And since we saw the first one, I think we should be able to see that second one shortly here as well. And there you can see it. Very cool views today. Now we just are waiting for that third and final SkySat here shortly.
SkySat 3 separation confirmed.
And there's confirmation of separation of that final SkySat. These 3 SkySats will be joining 15 already in orbit, and 3 more will be deploying on a separate Starlink mission later this summer, completing their fleet of 21 SkySats. Now stage 2 is going to continue to coast in this orbit for a few more minutes. During this time, it will start to spin on its central axis, giving the Starlink satellites the momentum that they need to space themselves out over time after they deploy at T plus 26 minutes. And as I mentioned earlier, because we will not have ground station coverage at time of deployment, we will not have visual or audio confirmation of a successful deploy until we reach the next station at Diego Garcia about 25 minutes from now. So with that, we're going to take another break here and return back at T plus 38 minutes so that we can confirm live a successful deployment of our 58 Starlink satellites.
Acquisition of signal, Diego Garcia.
Is that confirmation of connection to the ground station?
Starlink tension rod separation confirmed.
And there is that confirmation of the tension rods deployed and the Starlink satellites deployed today. So after they deployed, shortly after they deployed, their solar arrays deployed as well, and over the next few days and weeks, they will distance themselves from each other with that momentum created by the second stage and use their onboard ion thrusters to make their way to their operational orbit.
Gaseous oxygen condenses, giving you that nice white fog. That's normal for this point in the count.
Falcon's in startup. FTS configured for flight.
Launch director is announced. We're inside of a minute. We are in startup on the flight computers. We are also beginning to pressurize stage 1 and stage 2 for launch.
Mission directors, go for launch.
We've heard the final call outs. Mission director, launch director are go for launch. So at T-minus 30 seconds coming up, all systems are go for launch of Falcon 9 with GPS 3 space vehicle number 3.
T-minus 15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff. Go Falcon, go GPS.
Vehicle is pitching down range. Chamber pressure down.
T plus 40 seconds. We've heard callouts. And now we're entering the throttle bucket. We're powering down the Merlin engines to relieve the acceleration as we get ready for the period of maximum dynamic pressure. We're in the throttle bucket. Now we're beginning to power back up. We hear the call out exiting throttle bucket. The 9 Merlin 1D engines going back to full power. And we are now supersonic.
Max Q.
Guidance engineer calls out max Q, the period of maximum dynamic pressure, or Q, on the vehicle. From this point forward, although we go faster and faster, the thinner atmosphere will put less loads on the airframe of the rocket. Coming up next is chill-in of the upper stage engine. We've got a good trajectory.
And back engine chill started.
We've begun the chill-in of the upper stage engine. Power on the Merlin 1D engines looks good. Avionics reports everything is nominal. We're T+2 minutes into flight. Next major activity. In half a minute, shutdown of the 9 Merlin engines, separate the first and second stage, and ignite the second stage engine to carry GPS and the second stage into the first of 2 orbits today. This one will be the initial parking orbit. Falcon 9 preparing for MECO.
And MECO.
Stage separation confirmed.
And we've confirmed ignition of the second stage engine after a good stage 1, stage 2 SEP. You could see briefly the Falcon 9 first stage in the background.
Both vehicles are following nominal trajectories.
Call out that both vehicles are following the planned trajectory. First stage continuing to coast to apogee, where it'll then slowly turn around and descend back to the drone ship for landing in the Atlantic Ocean. The second stage engine beginning the long burn to get it into the parking orbit.
Acquisition of signal, Maryland.
Coming up, fairing deploy. Waiting to see the camera switch forward.
Fairing separation confirmed.
And we've got fairing separation. The 2 halves of the Falcon 9 fairing separating, the pneumatic system unlatching the locks that hold it together, and then the pneumatic pushers separating the 2 halves. As the fairing falls away from the vehicle, we can see on the left side of the screen the grid fins, the large titanium castings that are mounted to the first stage have deployed. They'll be used later as we come back into the atmosphere for precision guidance of the first stage to land on the drone ship. On the right-hand side, we see the second stage engine continuing to burn. It's at full power. Everything's looking good with the trajectory. So at just past T+4 minutes into flight, everything is go on the flight of Falcon 9 with GPS-3, space vehicle number 3.
T+4 minutes and 25 seconds into flight. We're currently in the first of 2 planned Merlin vacuum engine burns. Currently looking at the data, the second stage engine burn is nominal. On your left-hand screen, you can see the first stage as it's performing that reorientation that John and I talked about. The grid fins are deployed, and you're seeing some thruster plumes there from the attitude control system that are getting it ready so that the 9 Merlin 1D engines are pointed towards the atmosphere as it re-enters into Earth's atmosphere. Beautiful views of the planet beneath both the first stage and the second stage. Second stage is continuing into its burn. We're expecting this burn
Both
to
vehicles
last
continue to follow nominal trajectories.
5 minutes and 15 seconds. And entry burn will actually begin on the first stage in just about a minute from now. During the entry burn, we'll ignite 3 of the Merlin 1D engines on the first stage. That'll give us a chance to slow down the stage as it ends up re-entering the Earth's atmosphere and reduce the aerodynamic loads as it starts to bite into the thicker parts of the air around our planet. You can see the Merlin vacuum engine on your right-hand screen, the nozzle extension there growing red hot. That's expected. We're really, we have such a long nozzle extension on there to try to get the most performance out of the pressure coming out of the thrust chamber on the second stage engine. So coming up here in about 15 seconds is entry burn. Watch for that on your left-hand screen. That'll ignite 3 of the Merlin 1D engines while second stage continues to burn towards that elliptical orbit with the GPS vehicle on board.
Stage 1 FTS is saved.
Stage 1 entry burn has started.
There's successful ignition of the 3 Merlin 1D engines on the first stage. We're expecting this burn to last just about 30 seconds.
Stage 1 entry burn shut down.
You see some bursts there Successful shutdown of the engine and some attitude control bursts just to get that orientation right. Now, once we get into the thicker parts of the atmosphere where those grid fins have some aerodynamic control authority, they will do most of the guiding to take the first stage towards our drone ship, named Just Read the Instructions, which is about 350 nautical miles off the east coast of Florida. Coming up at about 50 seconds from now, we'll have two events happening about the same time. The first stage will ignite its single center Merlin 1D engine for landing burn. About the same time, the second stage will perform secondary engine cutoff.
Stage 2 has entered terminal guidance.
Or SECO number 1. And while those two things occur, about 25 seconds later, the first stage will hopefully touch down on our drone ship. In between, they're deploying its landing legs. So watch for that on your left-hand screen.
Stage 2 FTS is saved.
Drone ship AOS. Stage 1 landing burn is starting.
Ignition of that center Merlin engine on the first stage.
SECO 1.
Successful confirmation of shutdown of the Merlin vacuum engine. The guidance engineer is evaluating the orbit of the second stage now.
Nominal parking orbit.
Nominal parking orbit,
Landing
that's
legs
exactly what we
deployed.
want to hear. Landing leg deployment looks like right down the center.
And
Looks
stage
like
1
a
is
successful
landed.
landing.
Recovery operators move into
I see it
procedure
first
11.100
stage.
on
Excellent.
UCF9.
So that, you know, we first flew Falcon 9 10 years ago, actually this month. Since then, it's completed 88 missions, and now the most flown operational rocket in the United States. This mission completed its first landing, and hopefully we'll have many more to come.
Stage 2 expected.
The vehicle is now, we're actually going to enter into our first coast phase, now that we know that the second stage is in.
Continue to be go for launch. Falcon 9 rolled out to the pad Sunday afternoon about 25 hours before launch and went vertical 4 hours later.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff.
M1D propulsion is nominal.
Plus 40 seconds, everything looking good? That's the call out, says M1D engines are throttling down, getting ready to reduce vehicle acceleration in preparation for the period of maximum dynamic pressure. We're in the bottom of the throttle bucket, as they call it. Now the Merlin engine's coming back up to full power as we get ready to go supersonic.
Vehicle is supersonic.
Supersonic, we're coming through the period of maximum dynamic pressure.
Vehicle has reached maximum aerodynamic pressure.
Guidance engineer confirms we're through the period of greatest pressure on the vehicle. Continuing downrange, trajectory looks good, propulsion looks good, avionics looks good.
MVAC chill has started.
That announcement from stage 2 propulsion. We are now beginning to chill in the turbo pump on the upper stage engine to get ready for its ignition coming up in about 45 seconds. Nice view from the SpaceX cameras at Cape Canaveral as we head east out of Space Launch Complex 40 into the first of 2 orbits planned for today. This orbit is the parking orbit, a low Earth orbit trajectory that will take us over the equator and will eventually relight the upper stage engine to transfer us into the desired geostationary transfer orbit. Now main engine cutoff, or MECO, coming up in several seconds, followed by pneumatic separation. The first stage pushes away from the second stage, and then ignition of the second stage engine.
Stage separation confirmed.
MECO on time. Stage sep looks good. And the call-out MVAC-D engine is at full power. The view on the left screen, you can see the large titanium grid fins now slowly opening. That begins about a 2-minute period as we slowly rotate the first stage around to get it ready to come back through the atmosphere and land on the drone ship in the Atlantic off the east coast of Florida. Right-hand side, second stage engine glowing red. That's normal for the MVAC-D.
Trajectory.
Trajectory is nominal, we've heard from the guidance engineer. Great views coming from space. We're coming up on fairing deploy.
Fairing separation confirmed.
And we've heard the call out from the avionics engineer. Fairing separation is confirmed. I think you can see in the background behind the MVAC-D nozzle, one half of the fairing way in the distance as it went past the camera. So right now we're coming up 4 minutes into flight. Trajectory is looking excellent. We're right down the middle of the road. Power on the upper stage engine is good. Bermuda is now getting the telemetry from the Falcon 9, and we're getting great views from space at T plus 4 minutes and 13 seconds.
For those of you just joining us, we had a successful liftoff of our Falcon 9 rocket at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time from Cape Canaveral. On the right-hand side of your screen, our second stage, its engine is glowing as we continue to take the Anasis 2 satellite payload to its desired orbit. On the left-hand side, our first stage. We're beginning our recovery attempt on our drone ship out in the Atlantic Ocean. The next milestones coming up include that first stage's entry burn, followed by the second stage engine cutoff, known as SECO 1, the first stage landing burn, and then that hopeful landing. The entry burn will occur at about 6.5 minutes after liftoff. And what you don't see pictured here are those two fairing halves. They've been jettisoned, and it will take some time for them to get down to sea level. So we won't be covering on the webcast that recovery attempt status, but stay tuned on social media for updates. You see some pretty clear pictures of Earth there. The first stage has reached apogee. It's beginning to head down there. We're only going to be firing 3 of our Merlin engines during this entry burn in order to slow the vehicle down before it gets to the thicker parts of Earth's atmosphere. It'll slow the vehicle by about 25%. When we perform stage separation, that first stage was traveling about 2.5 kilometers per second. So we have a lot of velocity to reduce.
Great.
And we're just under 30 seconds from that entry burn beginning. It's going to last about 24 seconds. We're 10 seconds away from entry burn. Hopefully we'll be able to hear that call out and have visual confirmation that burn's begun.
Stage 1, entry burn startup.
Our entry burn has begun. You'll see that, the exhaust there will grow and start to become elliptical as we turn on the engines. The center engine fires first, the 2 side engines fire shortly after that. So that exhaust will seem to grow during this burn.
Stage 1, entry burn shutdown.
All right, 1 burn down, 1 to go. That's the landing burn. It'll occur in about 1 minute from now, along with the next milestone, the second stage engine cutoff, or SECO 1. That'll be at T plus 8 minutes, 7 seconds. During SECO 1, we shut down the second stage MVAC engine on the right-hand side of the screen.
Also signal first stage, Cape Canaveral, expected.
In about 25 seconds after SECO 1, Falcon 9 will touch down, hopefully, on our drone ship. Just read the instructions. Currently, it's in the Atlantic, about 350 nautical miles off the coast of Florida.
Start of terminal guidance.
And in terms of velocity of that first stage, drag alone is slowing the first stage down another 80%. That landing burn will take us back to get that last 20%, touch us down safely. Just under 10 seconds from landing burn and Seco 1.
Seco.
Stage 1, landing burn, startup.
We have confirmation of both landing burn and Seco 1. We're waiting confirmation of a good orbital insertion for that Anasis 2 satellite. And the landing
Stage 1.
Also, landing laser deploying now.
Nominal park orbit insertion.
And there it is. That is our 57th successful landing of a Falcon 9 on our drone ship. Just read the instructions. While we were watching that landing, we also had confirmation of nominal orbit insertion. We're all pretty excited over here at SpaceX for being able to use this first stage for a third time coming up. But going back to our primary mission on the second stage, it's going to coast for about 18 minutes until we cross the equator, where we perform the second of 2 burns of the upper stage, help change the orbit. We're going to take a break until then.
Great skies. We had great views from first stage and second stage. Saw the first stage land on the drone ship. We've done the 2 burns of the upper stage engine. Both of them were nominal. But right now we're getting ready for the big event, which is spacecraft separation. And as a reminder, we won't see payload deploy today per the customer's request. So we're going to listen in for the avionics engineer to call it.
Payload separation confirmed.
And there it is. Avionics engineer calls. Payload separation has deployed, confirming that via telemetry. And so 32 minutes, 49 seconds into flight. That's the camper. We've done the primary mission. We've brought the first stage back to the drone ship. It's been a great day. Took a little while getting here, but well worth it with a totally successful mission today.
3, 2, 1.
SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. My name is Yomezo, and I'm a Dragon integration and test engineer here at SpaceX. You're watching a live webcast for our 10th Starlink mission, marking our 13th mission of 2020.
Flight, and we're waiting for the final go.
LD, go for launch.
With that, the SpaceX launch director has confirmed we're go for launch. So as we come up on T-minus 30 seconds, let's listen to the final countdown and watch as Falcon 9 takes our Starlink satellites and Black Sky satellites to orbit.
Stage 1 tanks pressing for flight. T-minus 15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. And liftoff. M1D propulsion is nominal.
plus 40 seconds since the launch of Falcon 9. Propulsion is confirmed. Merlin's look nominal. Power and telemetry are confirmed nominal from the avionics engineer. We're throttling down right now on the Merlin 1D engines. Preparing for supersonic and max Q.
Mach 1.
Got the call out for Mach 1. We have throttled the Merlins back up to full power. Next event will be maximum dynamic pressure. And there we are. We're going through the thickest portion of the atmosphere at the highest speeds. Now as we continue to accelerate Falcon 9, the air density gets thinner and the loads on the vehicle decrease. A minute 30 seconds, trajectory continues to look good.
Back dechill.
Back dechill indicates we're now beginning to bleed a little bit of liquid oxygen through the upper stage engine turbo pump to get it ready for ignition, coming up in just about 40 seconds from now. Nice view from the ground camera looking up the long plume coming out of the 9 Merlin 1D engines. Now, major event coming up will be main engine cutoff coming up at just after 2.5 minutes, called MECO. We shut off all the 9 engines. We'll separate the first stage from the second stage, and we will ignite the second stage engine called SES1, the second stage engine start number 1. Beginning to throttle down.
MECO.
Stage separation confirmed.
And we've got successful MVAC full power ignition. The view on the right shows the MVAC engine, the second stage now taking over, carrying the Starlink and Black Sky satellites to orbit. On the left screen, the first stage is continuing without power to coast to apogee, and you can see the large titanium grid fins beginning to open with the lights of the United States in the background as we slowly head up the eastern coast of America. Now, next coming up will be fairing separation. There's a view of the fairing, and we confirm fairing separation. So the Falcon 9 second stage continues at full power, carrying the Starlink and Black Sky satellites to the first of 2 orbits. The first stage is continuing to coast to apogee, and then it will begin to fall back to Earth, and eventually 2 burns to land on the drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean. The trajectory right now continues to look right down the middle. Everything's looking good on Falcon 9. So as we come up on 4 minutes, we will remind you that we are attempting to catch and recover both fairing halves now that they've separated on our recovery vessels Ms. Tree and Ms. Chief. If we make a successful catch, we'll try to bring you these views live. Otherwise, check our social media accounts for updates. Right now, 4 minutes, 20 seconds of the mission. All is going well.
While stage 2 is doing its job there on the right, stage 1 is headed back home to Earth. Can't quite see it on the video on the left, but it is doing that, and it will do this by executing a series of 2 burns. The first burn is the entry burn, where 3 of the 9 M1D engines will light up and slow the stage down as it re-enters the upper part of the Earth's atmosphere. The second burn is the landing burn, and this is a single engine burn that brings the vehicle speed down rapidly in order to land on the drone ship. You can see on your screen that the second stage MVAC is still glowing and in the middle of its burn there, carrying our satellites to orbit. So stage 1 entry burn is going to start in just over a minute here at T plus 6 minutes and 21 seconds. Stage 1 is currently navigating home to Earth using both its grid fins, and that small spurt of light that you saw was a nitrogen burst from the attitude control system, which is nitrogen gas that helps to orient and guide the first stage as it heads home. There are 4 grid fins and 4 attitude control thrusters on the inner stage of the rocket. In just about 20 seconds here, we will hear the call out for the start of the stage 1 entry burn. This burn will last 20 seconds. Again, it's a 3-engine burn that will slow the first stage down as it enters the upper parts of the Earth's atmosphere.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
Heard confirmation of the stage 1 entry burn startup. You can see those backlit grid fins with those 3 engines burning there. Again, this burn lasts 20 seconds.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
We've had confirmation of successful stage 1 entry burn, and we're about a minute away from our landing burn. The landing burn will start at T plus 8 minutes, and it is also about 20 seconds long. The landing burn should bring us to our drone ship. Of course, I still love you in the Atlantic Ocean. So we have briefly lost that first stage view, but we should get it back when we get closer to the drone ship. We're about 30 seconds out from the stage 1 landing burn. Again, this is a single engine burn. It's the engine right in the middle. Stage 1 is transonic right now. We're about 10 seconds from landing burn start.
Stage 1 landing burn.
Heard the call out for the start of stage 1 landing burn. You can see the clouds sort of lighting up there.
Starting terminal guidance. Stage 1 landing leg deploy.
Wow, look at that stage 1 sitting on our drone ship. Of course, I still love you. That was a beautiful view of the stage 1 as it came down there, lighting the clouds up. And in just about 10 seconds here, we'll have second engine cut off there right on your screen.
Seco.
We've had confirmation of
loss of signal, Cape.
second engine cutoff, and we're waiting for confirmation of good orbit out of this first burn here.
Nominal parking orbit insertion.
We're in a nominal orbit, and now we're about to enter.
Stage 2 ignition. And shutdown.
Wow, it's here.
Starlink tension rod separation confirmed.
Heard the call out that we've had a successful deployment of our Starlink satellites. Oh, you can see the video just came back here of them floating away into space. To date now, we've sent 595 Starlink satellites into orbit. You can see on your screen there, the satellites are slowly separating from each other, and shortly they will deploy their solar arrays. Now, over the course of the next few days and weeks, these satellites will use their onboard ion thrusters to distance themselves from each other. And
all fuel tanks and liquid oxygen tanks are now fully loaded, so complete there on the prop load. Here In just 30 seconds or so, we'll hear a call out that Falcon 9 is in startup. It means that the rocket's autonomous internal flight computers have taken over the launch countdown. At T-minus 2 seconds, the Merlin engines will light and liftoff will be commanded to the vehicle at T-minus 0. So right now, as we approach the T-minus 1 minute mark, the Starlink payload and the Planet payloads continue to look healthy. Falcon 9 team is tracking no issues on the rocket. Weather continues to look good, and the range is green for launch.
Falcon 9's in startup. Stage 2, press for flight.
LD is go for launch.
T-minus 30 seconds.
Okay, so we're in the final phases of the countdown. Let's watch as Falcon 9 takes
T-minus 15 seconds.
Starlink satellites and 3 Planet SkySats into orbit.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition and liftoff of the Falcon 9. Go Starlink.
Stage 1, caution, download.
A successful liftoff of Falcon 9 from Space Launch Complex 40 for this 11th Starlink mission. The 3 Planet SkySats and our 58 Starlink satellites are on their way to space. In about 10 seconds, we will be approaching max Q. Merlin engines are now throttling down as they anticipate the moment of greatest aerodynamic pressure.
Max Q.
All right, we just went through max Q, and the vehicle is now supersonic, and Merlin engines have throttled back up. So coming up in about a minute, we'll have 3 events happening back to back. First will be main engine cutoff, or MECO. This is where all 9 Merlin engines will shut off to slow the vehicle down in preparation for the second event, stage separation. This is where the first stage separates from the second stage, with stage 1 starting to make its way back to Earth for landing, while second stage will kick off the third event in this sequence, SES-1, or second engine start 1. This is where that Merlin vacuum engine will ignite and begin to propel the second stage along with our payloads into orbit. Main engine cutoff coming up in about 20 seconds. Everything continuing to look nominal for stage 1.
We have MECO.
Stage separation confirmed.
And impact ignition.
All right, so there we saw those 3 events all happen in quick succession. Stage 1 is now making its way back to Earth. There on the left-hand side of your screen, we can see the grid fins slowly deploying. And on the right-hand side of your screen, the Merlin vacuum engine beginning to develop that healthy orange glow as it continues its journey on to orbit.
Fairing separation confirmed.
We're just a few seconds away from fairing deployment. There we go, visual confirmation of fairing deployment. Once again, as a reminder, we flew those fairings on a previous Starlink mission in January earlier this year. So So with that, we have successfully reused this fairing pair. Like I said earlier, we will be attempting to catch those fairing halves with our recovery ships, Ms. Tree and Ms. Chief.
Bermuda acquisition of
Everything
signal.
Continuing nominally. While the second stage is continuing to do its job, the first stage is making its way back home to Earth. In the next few minutes, it will be executing 2 burns. The first is the entry burn, where 3 of the Merlin engines at the bottom of the first stage will light up and begin to slow the stage down as it re-enters the upper part of the Earth's atmosphere. The second burn is known as the landing burn. This is a single engine burn that will bring the vehicle speed down rapidly in order to make a soft landing on the drone ship. The 58 Starlink satellites that are being carried along on the right-hand side of your screen there by the second stage will be joining our constellation of over 600 Starlink satellites that are already on orbit, which once again are designed to provide high-speed, low-latency internet to people on Earth. This is particularly important for places where good internet is hard to access, as well as places where wired or grounded internet is impossible, such as ships and airplanes. We're 1 minute away from the beginning of that entry burn. On the left-hand side of your screen, we can see stage 1 coasting. Using nothing but those grid fins, we see them articulate here and there as they continue to steer. And we also utilize nitrogen gas for occasional little bursts of that nitrogen gas, and we use that for attitude control, which sometimes you can catch a glimpse of as little white puffs. Second stage continuing nominally, now at 1.5 Gs for acceleration. And 10 seconds away now from the beginning of that entry burn. Again, this is the first of 2 burns intended to slow the vehicle's velocity down as it re-enters the Earth's atmosphere.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
And there we can see that the entry burn has begun and will last for about 20 seconds.
Stage 2 continues on nominal trajectory.
Again, this burn utilizes 3 engines at the base of the rocket. And there we can see the entry burn has concluded. Second stage trajectory is still looking nominal. And in less than a minute, we will see the first stage on the left-hand side of the screen perform its landing burn. Looking back at our second stage, everything continues to look good. Once again, we are carrying 58 Starlink satellites prepared to join the over 600 Starlink satellites that are already on orbit, as well as 3 rideshare satellites for our customer planets. Those 3 SkySats will join the 18 SkySats that are already also on orbit. We're about 15 seconds away from landing burn.
Terminal guidance.
Stage 1 landing burn.
And landing burn has begun. You should see the
Stage
plume
2
from the
FTS is
rocket
saved.
appear on the screen here.
Stage
and
1, landing leg deploy.
Our touchdown and shut off. Successful landing of the first stage booster. Once again, this is the 6th time that we have utilized this booster on a mission, also marking its 6th landing. This is the Of Course I Still Love You drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean. As 3 rideshare satellites for our customer planet. We're about 10 seconds away from the first of 3 deployments for those Planet SkySats.
SkySat 21 deploy confirmed.
Okay, deployment confirmed for that first SkySat. The first of 3 this morning. And there on your screen, at the end of the stack, slowly making its way away from the second stage, we can see that first SkySat moving along.
SkySat 20 deploy confirmed.
And confirmation that the second SkySat has deployed. We'll see that here momentarily. There it is at the end of the stack again. And awaiting the third and final deployment for this rideshare customer.
And SkySat 19 deploy confirmed.
And deployment confirmed for that third and final SkySat for our customer planet. These 3 SkySats will be joining 18 already on orbit, which will complete the fleet of 21 and make it the largest high-resolution fleet of satellites in orbit to date. Like I mentioned before, they'll be capable of imaging a single location up to 12 times a day. Right now, stage 2 is going to continue to coast in this orbit for a few more minutes. During this time, it will start to spin along its central axis, which will give those Starlink satellites the momentum they require to space themselves out over time after deployment at T plus 46 minutes. So right now, we're going to take a break, but stay tuned because we'll be back at T plus 45 minutes in preparation for the deployment of those 58 Starlink satellites. For our 11th Starlink mission, we had an on-time liftoff at 10:31 a.m. Eastern Time from Cape Canaveral, Florida. For a 6th mission for this particular first stage, we landed it successfully on our drone ship. And there, as you can see on your screen, we successfully caught one of the fairing halves. That is a recovery vessel, Ms. Tree, caught that out of the air. The second fairing half made a soft water landing, so Ms. Chief is en route to scoop it out.
Tension rod separation confirmed.
We have an expected loss of signal over our ground station. There we go. We can see the visual confirmation of Starlink deployment. Like I said before, those 58 Starlinks will be joining 600 that are already on orbit. And shortly, they will be deploying their solar arrays. Over the next few days and weeks, they will distance themselves out using the momentum created by the second stage.
Maneuver complete.
Like I said, we spun it along its central axis to provide the momentum required for those satellites to space out, as you can see there. So they'll be using their onboard ion thrusters to make their way to their operational orbit of 550 kilometers above Earth. And we'll begin to start beaming down high-speed internet to us Earthlings. And with that wonderful view of those Starlink satellites floating out into space, we will now bring our webcast to a close this morning.
All right, we're currently less than 4 minutes from liftoff. Falcon 9 is now moving into the final stages of the countdown. The vehicle remains in good health, but the weather is actually now go. The status has changed last minute. In terms of fuel, the first and second stages are now fully fueled with RP1. LOX loading will continue for the next few minutes. And also one thing you'll hear 1 minute before liftoff, you'll hear the announcement that Falcon 9 is in startup mode. This means that the rocket's own internal computers are now autonomously controlling the launch countdown. The Salcom 1B payload continues to be healthy. The Falcon 9 team is tracking no issues on the rocket. Weather has just recently opened up and is looking good, and the range is green for launch. As a reminder, if we don't launch today, we do have that backup opportunity tomorrow, pending range acceptance at 7:19 p.m. Eastern local time. And with just under 3 minutes to go before launch, let's listen in to the final countdown prior to liftoff. All right, our 9 Merlin engines on the first stage are chilled. They're ready for flight. The LOX loading will complete on that second stage in just a few seconds. Once that occurs, you'll start seeing more of this white clouds venting.
Stage 2 LOX closed out.
And as our LOX is fully loaded and it's topped off, you'll start seeing this condensation, these clouds form more and more right up until liftoff.
Falcon 9's in startup.
All right, we have entered startup mode. Falcon 9 has taken over the remainder of the countdown. We're just waiting for the go for launch callouts.
Stage 2, press for flight.
LD, go for launch.
T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. And liftoff of Falcon's first East Coast polar launch, Ola, Argentina.
Stage 1 course nominal.
We're now 40 seconds in the flight. Falcon 9 has taken off. It's cleared the tower, and we're currently throttling down to prepare for maximum Q. That's the point of maximum aerodynamic pressure. It's at 1 minute, 12 seconds.
Vehicle is supersonic. Vehicle has reached maximum aerodynamic pressure.
You've heard it. We've reached max Q. At this point, the loads in the vehicle become less and less as the atmosphere gets thinner. We're